Our top story, tension in the Korean Peninsula is heating up. North Korea has fired a series of missiles yet again. One of the missiles triggered siren blaring in parts of Japan. Residents were seen seeking shelter in central and northern regions.
7時40分頃に発射されたものは日本列島を越えて飛翔する可能性があると探知しましたので J アラートにてその旨公表いたしました。その後当該情報を確認したところミサイルは日本列島を越えず日本海上空にて消失したことが確認されましたので訂正いたします。
While it did not fly over Japan, at least one of the missiles fell into the country's territorial waters. North Korea also tested an intercontinental ballistic missile, but its launch failed following its second stage separation. This is the latest in a record year of missile testing by the North. The launches come a day after Pyongyang fired the most number of missiles in 24 hours. A record 23 missiles landed in the waters. One of them even reached South Korea's coast for the first time. The government had to issue an air raid warning in response. Now, North Korea's neighbors have been voicing concern. On one occasion, Seoul called the launches a territorial invasion. Tokyo has condemned it as an outrage that cannot be forgiven. The criticism seems to be falling on deaf ears. Pyongyang has branded all of it as retaliation.
A ballistic missile was launched earlier. The continuous launch of ballistic missiles is outrageous and absolutely intolerable.
South Korea and the United States are conducting one of their largest joint drills, which have been touted as a dry run for a scenario of a real war. Pentagon's F-35s are hovering in South Korea's airspace, holding mock missions. For North Korea, that is a threat. Pyongyang says these drills are a sign of provocation. So the Hermit Kingdom responded with its own missile tests. The peninsula has already witnessed over 50 missiles being fired by North Korea this year. Despite crippling sanctions, Pyongyang has conducted 6 nuclear tests between 2006 and 2017, and it's now rumored that it is planning yet another one in the weeks ahead. Well, for more on this story, we're now joined by Bill Gallo, a Voice of America correspondent who joins us from Seoul. Bill, 1.25 missiles fired in just 2 days, making it a record 75, and the year isn't over yet. What is it that North Korea is trying to demonstrate or achieve here? Because clearly tensions are on the rise and it's not helping anyone.
Well, North Korea, as you mentioned, often fires missiles. This is nothing new, especially this year. It has multiple reasons for doing so. Oftentimes, these are genuine weapons tests. They want to see if the technology is working and they want to develop new technology. However, as you have pointed out, there is no denying that there seems to be a real demonstration component to this latest barrage of missiles. I mean, over 25 in the last day and a half is unprecedented. I think that they are, on one hand, showing their displeasure over the U.S.-South Korea military drills. And then there's also a sense of just sort of beating everyone down and sort of forcing everyone in the region, mainly U.S. and its allies, to acknowledge that North Korea is a nuclear weapons state, even though those countries will of course never acknowledge that formally, as far as we know.
Right, 25 missiles fired in 2 days. That is a record of sorts. How's the South Korean administration viewing it, given that there have been violations in firing that have not been witnessed since the Korean War in the 1950s?
Right, this is a serious escalation, and I think the South Korean government and military rightly sees it as such. We have a conservative South Korean government who is more likely to sort of respond in a reciprocal way, to use a principle of reciprocity in its response. There have been past launch events this year where North Korea has launched a number of missiles, and South Korea will immediately launch the same number right back toward the sea, of course. That is not the case this time. It's not as if South Korea has responded with 25 missiles of its own. However, yesterday we did see South Korea launch 3 missiles across the de facto sea border. This is a serious escalation. I don't think anyone thinks that violence, as far as like deadly violence, will break out anytime soon. But as you mentioned, this hasn't happened since the 1950s, so it's very serious.
A very serious escalation indeed in the Korean Peninsula, and as these tensions continue to rise, Bill, the White House has claimed that North Korea is actually supplying artillery to Russia. Of course, a claim that North Korea has rejected. So the question really is, are a lot of issues here getting intertwined?
I think so. I mean, I think you're seeing a sharpening of divisions when it comes to geopolitical rivalries and things like this. North Korea-Russia relations are getting better. And that also includes China. China is sort of a part of this group, lest we forget. However, you know, U.S. officials, whenever they discussed the North Korea-Russian weapons sale, were quick to point out that this isn't a massive amount of weapons that North Korea is selling to Russia for use in Ukraine. It probably won't change the course of the war. However, it's obviously something of concern, both to the United States and, of course, those in Ukraine.
All right. Certainly a very precarious situation in the Korean Peninsula. Bill Gallo, thanks very much for getting us all those details.